Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here in Bucharest. The Voice of Freedom is trying to bring very interesting minds of conservative persuasion looking at the world. Of course, everybody is worried about the war in Iran, and there's a fog of war. There's censorship related to the war in itself. But of course, there is a war on fundamental rights like the freedom of expression, especially in Europe. And because we want to look deeply into what Brussels is doing against the European citizens who want to express themselves freely, we invited an independent journalist. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephane Lucon is with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Stephane, we know that you are an independent journalist, but you've worked also with established media in the past. And you've noticed recently, and it all goes back to Emmanuel Macron, the leader of France today, or at least the president of France, you've noticed that there's an increasingly powerful censorship being exercised against independent journalists like you. We've seen that in Romania with journalists such as Ion Cristoiu or Robert Turcescu or many others who saw their TikTok accounts banned. I believe also Mr., if I'm not mistaken, the head of Gându,
Marius
Tucă is also
definitely
involved in the story. So the question is, what happened in the past 5 years with the European Union, with France, and also with Romania when it comes to this fundamental right, the freedom of expression?
So let's say we know what happened mostly thanks to the American noticing the problem and taking care of the issue with Elon Musk purchasing Twitter and acting as a whistleblower inside his own company and making it possible to have the Twitter files. So the Twitter files investigation by American journalists Matt Taibbi, Michael Schellenberger, Li Feng, Andrew Rowensall, it's about journalists looking into a censorship machine that was enacted during mostly the Biden era, and that was targeting various voices, especially conservatives, but not only. There were people on the left, there were people that were like vaccine skeptic, all kind of people have been censored. There they managed to understand what was happening on Twitter and to make it known to the world. Now the issue is that this strategy, this wall, as Michael Schellenberger coined it, in censorship industrial complex, was a full network with government agencies interacting with social networks, with NGOs, and targeting speech that they wanted to silence. This strategy, it was not only in America, it's something that exists in Europe. It existed in France for a very long time. You have two journalists, Pascal Clairot and Thomas Fazi. They published Twitter Files France, which is a report about how France started long ago this idea of fighting speech through various ways that are not, let's say, pure state censorship. And then what happens is that we have, let's say, a conflict between the people seizing the social media to get their voices heard. And that's why when you asked me a picture of Macron, I thought about this cover from Le Monde, which was infamous in France. There were protests from, I think the newspaper Le Monde, they apologized about this, but it's about the Yellow Vest protest. And those protests were about people gathering thanks to the social media. They were also about the capacity for the people to document political repression. There was a huge repression on the Yellow Vest in France. Many people were victims, like lost an eye, lost an hand. And from that, from the Yellow Vest, from the Trump election, from the Brexit, suddenly this whole system that used to work in America was really like activated, and it got more and more money to control speech in the European Union. The DSA came and it kind of empowered those kind of structures. And what you mentioned Romania, what is obvious, and I mean, it's obvious to us, but people outside of Romania don't necessarily know that. Everybody has seen the annulment of the election. What they don't know is a wave of censorship that came after. So yes, journalists were targeted, and that was a starting point for me when I saw. I had my Twitter account suspended. I had the Facebook account of a newspaper I publish here suspended. Then I saw, of course, Mr. Tuka, Mr.
Florentin Tuka, the lawyer.
No,
Marius Tuka, yes.
Tuka, yeah, Marius Tuka from Gondor. You mentioned
Yes.
him. And
A very
and
important
actually-
journalist. I'm just saying for the international audience, maybe the most, I would say, one of the most followed voices in Romania right now.
And there are two things, especially if we are to speak about Marius Tuka, there are, let's say, two different moments. One is when there is a decision from the National Audiovisual Council to try to censor a video from him when he's saying this was a coup d'etat, what happened in Romania. You remember that?
Yes.
So there was there was an order from the National Audiovisual Council. I don't like it. Many people didn't like it. This is one thing. But the other thing that happened is that he's been targeted on TikTok. He had video taken down. He had account taken down. He's been targeted on Facebook when reporting about Mr. Durov's comment. So this whole wave of censorship that happened in Romania in 2025 during the rerun of the election is something that I believe everybody should know, because it's like canary in the coal mine. What's happening here, it's happening in the framework of the Digital Services Act. It's something that can virtually happen in any other country of the European Union. So we really need to watch, to document, to understand, and to see how to prevent having the same issues in the rest of the European Union.
I'm Mihail Neamțu, and you are watching Voice of Freedom show, and we have a special guest, Stephane Lucon, who is a French journalist living in Bucharest. And I'm coming back to you, Stephane, because we are, I don't know whether you know it or not, recording this conversation in a building which was the #1 building in Romania under Soviet times, or in Soviet times, made to censor all the journals, all the magazines. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, I don't know whether you know this, all the papers would leave this building. They were printed in here. They would go to, of course, the railway station. From the railway station in Bucharest, the papers in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s were sent to, the small towns of Romania. And of course, our Pravda, Scânteia, that was the name of the newspaper, the communist newspaper, was the official paper of the Communist Party. You could not think in terms which were different from the party. Now, in 1989, we fought against the system. We believed communism was bad because they were not able to provide us with fundamental rights, with basic needs, but also with this especially important gift, which is a gift especially for journalists and intellectuals, a precious gift, that is the gift of freedom. So we believed we would join the European Union, we would join the Western Alliance, we would be part of NATO, only because we hated communism. We hated the past horrors of the totalitarian system. Now, 35 years down the road, we see that European Union is behaving pretty much like the Soviet Union when it comes to censorship. Why is that?
Well,
why are they afraid of their own citizens who are paying taxes, who are paying, fines sometimes? Why are they afraid of us?
Yeah. I didn't come here to answer the why. I mean, it's really almost a philosophical question, or it's a worldview about why an elite will turn against its people. You have to really, there are a lot of things to take into account about why they are doing this. So far, my work is to try to understand what they have done, and this
to
is
show
already,
how they are doing it, especially.
And it's already very hard because, when they implemented the DSA, they say, the platforms are abusing the user have no rights, so we will bring user rights, we will organize all this, and we make the Digital Services Act. Now, what I documented is that all those cases of censorship, this is one thing, but the user rights chapter of the DSA is a joke.
The charter, yeah.
It's not that it's written like a joke. I mean, if at least they abided by this, you have Article 17. You cannot have any kind of action without informing the person properly. They cannot demote you. They cannot demote any journalist. They cannot take down anybody without offering a statement of reason. So this is in the DSA. You don't receive serious statement of reason. You never know exactly what is the problem.
No, you are always violating the rules of the community.
Exactly, something like that. And then those statements, they should be published. It should be transparent. There is a DSA database where everything should be published. I contacted the Wiesel Institute for Holocaust Remembrance in Romania. They are trusted flaggers, so they can flag content that would be anti-Semitic or Holocaust denial. And they told me that even they can't find trace of the flagging they've been doing. So it's a black box. There is censorship happening. We should know why, when, who ordered it. We should have all the documentation. Maybe it's legit, maybe it's not legit. In my opinion, Ceausescu's censorship, it's not legit. Christo, it's not legit. Tuca, it's not legit. There are so many cases that we know are not okay. And okay, we should have received this information. So you ask me why. I can see how they behave. So they do the censorship, they don't protect the users, they don't protect the citizens. So obviously the idea is to get any, let's say, decent censored, which that's where...
Any criticism against the establishment, that the status quo needs to be crushed.
Yes, and you know, it's... there are moments when it becomes very, very obvious. We will come to that.
No, that's why I brought the image of a Chinese greeting a European Thierry Baudet. What's his name?
Thierry Breton.
Breton. Thierry Breton is greeting a Chinese official, and they probably are like-minded when it comes to censorship. Go on.
Yeah,
we'll come back.
Let's hold that thought and the infamous Chinese wall quote from Mr. Breton, because I wrote about this one. But what I wanted to say is that, so if any dissent can be censored, it looks like we are going something like totalitarianism that you mentioned, and the Romania suffered of it. But what's very amazing, especially those days, is that you can see how they flip their narratives in a very easy way, and then it makes me think that censorship is the goal in itself, in a way. Like controlling is a goal in itself. And I'm thinking about the flip regarding Russian oil, those days. So for months, everybody's saying those sanctions are not working properly. Russia is not suffering from those sanctions, but the European Union is suffering from the lack of energy. And
yes.
I mean, with cheap energy, we can do more, we can help more if we have better economies. So in a way, you had people criticizing the sanctions as being counterproductive.
Yes.
They were made Russophile, Putinist. They were accused of being pro-Russia. But now that there is this crisis in the Middle East, all of a sudden we hear them saying, like Merz, I think, saying that we need to let Russian oil flow into the European Union. And it makes you wonder, I mean, what are they fighting if not any dissenting voice that says something that is not convenient for the elite and those in power? And it really sounds to me, I mean, I documented a lot of cases in Romania, and really one of the constant, let's say, is that you will only see censorship for things that are inconvenient for the executive power, for the executive branch of Romania, or maybe some other executive branches, like things inconvenient for Macron, are likely to be censored in Romania, for example. You want to go back to Thierry Breton because
no, you are free here.
Okay, but I'd like to go back to him because it's people don't necessarily know it. I mean, I wrote this. This is on my Substack.
No, Stephane,
he tried to explain.
Go on.
You know, he tried to justify himself when he said that the Elon Musk Donald Trump debate live on X should not be
broadcasted in Europe,
and that he said, watch out, you have to respect the DSA. And then he was saying, this is not censorship. This is not censorship. And immediately he says, they should have put a Chinese wall. So if you're not familiar, or if the audience is not familiar, when he said Chinese wall, he's thinking about the digital Chinese firewall. This is a system that prevents any kind of foreign information, specific keywords, for example, like Tiananmen. It's something that will not reach the Chinese internet. So they have this firewall nationwide that protects China from foreign speech. They're Chinese, that's their problem. The idea is that when Mr. Breton says this, it's really like, you really got to understand that they want to break the flow of free speech within the Western hemisphere. And this is, it sounds very, to me, it sounds very crazy. And I know we have quite different understanding between the, let's say, the French and the American when we come to free speech. I personally like the American way of understanding what is free speech and what are the limits. And those limits are, let's say, violence, calls for violence, immediate danger. That's something that should be regulated. Personally, I don't like, I mean, I like the fact that they accept speech they don't like. You know, there is this famous Larry Flint quote, free speech means free speech for the speech you hate, for the speech you hate the most. And it was a quote in a Romanian rap video. He was speaking about Romania 20 years ago in the Down with Censorship video, Jos Cenzura. You know?
Yes.
It's,
but Mr. Macron, your president, not mine.
Don't say that.
Mr. Macron said recently, he said, free speech really is just bullshit. Now, he comes from a culture, I would say French culture, in which equality is more important sometimes than freedom. And of course, equality just on paper. And he is someone who more and more wants to distance himself from the Americans. And he probably is annoyed because 250 years ago, the American Revolution presented freedom as the most fundamental right, perhaps more than the French Revolution. And the more we go back to the American Revolution, the more we go back to the ideals of the Founding Fathers, the more we go back to the sacrifices which were made by those Americans who some of them got killed in order to have a republic based on the fundamental right of freedom of speech, we realize there is a civilizational difference between the West and I would say China and other countries like Russia, Iran, and so on and so forth. So the question is, where is the moral superiority of the West when you have people like Macron saying that freedom of speech is bullshit? How is Macron different right now from the mullahs in Tehran? How is he different from the communist apparatchiks in Beijing? How is he different from people in Kremlin if he says, really, freedom of speech is just bullshit?
There is...
Pardon my French.
Yeah, no, I mean, he says that, and it's really incredible, and there is really a push under Macron for this. And it's a big problem because, you know what, France used to be pushing free speech from the left in the 70s. You know Charlie Hebdo? Like,
yes.
You know,
the outrageous magazine, yes.
The outrageous magazine, the provocative magazine. So in the 70s, you had Charlie Hebdo, you had Harakiri, you had some others, and they were really pushing from whether leftist or anarchist,
yes,
which is a bit different, but anyway, and they managed to get people to accept the idea that, okay, it's free speech. This is free speech, and we should not mess with that. And all of a sudden, somewhere in the, let's say, year 2010, we saw the left being less and less vocal. I mean, they like completely forgot this. And it was the same in America. I mean, the UCLA left, people were defending speech back in the 60s, back in the 70s. And, well, at some point, they became the people who promote censorship because of some concept like hate speech and things like that. Now, I think we should...
You can hate so many things in this life. You can hate mediocrity. You can hate ugliness. You can hate vulgarity. You can hate stupidity. You can hate sin. You can hate disorder. You can hate so many things. And by hating them, you become a better person. You can hate even your own laziness. You hate yourself for a moment, you wake up, and you start a new life. Hating in and by itself is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes, of course, hating a human person, hating a group, hating an individual, yes, that is problematic. That is against at least my own religion. It's against my own ethics,
Hey, the
and something
sinner's
I
a
would.
sinner, yeah.
But exactly. But hating as such is not necessarily bad.
Well, that's one thing. The other thing is that
I mean, you hate, for instance, you go to a restaurant, okay, and you hate to see the food being served cold. Yes, you hate high prices on oil. You hate. So do you understand what I'm saying? It's an anthropological, philosophical point I'm making, and it's important to convey this because the idea that hating in and by itself is bad goes against human nature. We all hate something, and we all love something. By the way, everybody
and
loves
anyway,
somebody. You know, everybody hates somebody.
Yeah, it's this is one thing. There is also the fact that out of conflict and debate, we reach higher positions and higher knowledge. So if we don't accept contradiction, which can be
It's the very essence of life. Yeah.
it's a sense of life, of democracy, of debate, and all that.
So funky citizens hate me, for instance. I'll give you an example.
They hate a lot. I mean, I feel they hate a lot of people. But please tell me your example, because
No.
I didn't focus on political censorship except for one case, because I've seen. I mean, I thought it was outrageous. It's been documented by Patrick de Lorrain, and we made an article on this because they fact check a statement saying that there was a payment made to America for lobbying by your political party.
Yes.
And I was shocked because their proof in the fact check was the FARA declaration. And I was saying, and I had a conversation with Funky, and I was saying a contract, the declaration of a contract is an intent in the FARA, Foreign Registration Act,
Yes.
which is standard in America. Anything you want to do, lobbying or whatever, first
You
of
have
all,
to
you
register,
need to do
yes.
this. And I was saying, you're trying to prove a payment from an intent and a contract. A contract is not a proof of payment.
Yes.
And it was basic. And I was saying, don't say you prove a payment when you just have a contract as proof. And yet they kept that. They kept that for months.
Yes.
It was an obvious logical
Error.
And finally, you have the electoral authority releasing all the spending that happened, and you have Snoop, I think, the media, showing that no, this payment that was a controversy has not been proven so far.
Yes. But
And they keep that. So, but please.
No. I want you to
to
explain to our audience, not me, but you, to explain how the whole system works. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the European Union, okay, which has its own government. We can say European Commission. We have lots of commissioners or commissars, whatever you call them, and they are in charge for various, aspects of public life. Then you have the national government of Romania, which has its own government, its own governmental agencies. And you are saying that under this umbrella of the Digital Services Act, like I'm trying to explain for the average viewer, right? Under this huge umbrella, Digital Services Act, censorship was implemented. But the European Commission and the Romanian government or any other government in the region, they are looking and they are using different NGOs such as Expert Forum, Funky Citizens, who knows, The Click, and so on and so forth, and sometimes state institutions like Elie Wiesel Institute you've just mentioned. So these entities, huge entities, the government in Romania and the European Commission, rely on the services which I suppose are not provided for free, but they are provided for like big sums of money. And eventually we end up with the so-called fact checkers who signal out the presence of outrageous statements, controversial accounts. How does this whole ecosystem work?
So this is something that has been documented. Especially, you have Thomas Fazi, who worked on this. But this is a replica of what happened in America, where a lot of NGOs are getting governmental funding, and some of them, like if it's humanitarian, social aid or things like that, you don't think that they will behave like bad guys. But the idea is that you have a lot of money flooding a propaganda machine, and I think this is the name of the report by Thomas Fazi. And the idea is that you saw at some point those NGOs activated and targeting speech, let's say, they dislike. And especially, the head of Funky Citizen, twice in an email, she said, "Oh, we are not targeting journalists, we're targeting narratives. We're not targeting people, we're targeting narratives." And I mean, I have a very basic understanding of fact check. Fact check, you verify a fact. If suddenly your mission is to target narratives, then there is a whole question about what is the worldview. What are the narrative from the opposite worldview you need to censor, and what is your own worldview?
That's
This
what
is
the
one
Nazis
thing.
did. They burned books because books provided people with narratives. Now, interpretations of the world. I'm very committed here to say this. Interpretations of the world are always the result of an inquiry, which is always individual, which takes some risks. And at the end of an inquiry, maybe it takes 3 days, maybe it takes 3 years to study, say, the Second World War, or to study First World War, or to study the French Revolution, or to study history of Christianity. At the end of my enterprise, intellectual enterprise, I have a narrative which can be given to you in the form of a book, in the form of a comment, in the form of a video, in whatever format. Now, the idea that an NGO comes and tells me what narratives I'm allowed to say, to embrace, or to articulate, it's just ludicrous.
Or to read. I mean, if you can read a narrative, you can criticize it. It's not endorsing.
Sometimes,
they're
yeah.
preventing us. You had an example, a very good example. I think you have G4 Media, J4 Media.
Which is an important outlet, yes, in Romania.
It's not especially a decent outlet.
No, it's not honest at all, yeah.
Okay, so...
For me, it's a disgusting outlet, but go on. But, I just indicate that I also have feelings. Go on.
Exactly. So I have similar feeling about them. They even stole an article from me. So anyway,
you should sue them. They have lots of money.
But let's say, so to say how radical I am with documenting this issue on speech, they've been targeted because they published excerpts from a Telegraph article regarding the European Union LGBTIQ plus 2030 strategy. Now, they were quoting the Telegraph. The Telegraph was quoting TERF, trans exclusive radical feminists. So it's, you know the concept of...
Not much, no.
Sorry, so let's say these are feminists that say the trans ideology is dangerous for women, for kids, and for gay and lesbians. Basically, to sum it up very quickly, it's because if you're saying to a teen that is unsure that actually is not living in the right body, and you choose medication, and you choose to chop a part of his body, instead of helping him find himself, and maybe he's gay, and maybe he's lesbian, then you are doing a direct harm. And so you have those...
Maybe he could become a Christian. I'm just saying, if you don't mind.
Obviously, just to say that you have this part of, let's say, the struggle between, I would say it's the trans ideology, and in front of them, you don't have only conservatives, you also have feminists who are, let's say, historically not necessarily conservatives. So anyway, the idea is that...
It's like the fight between Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. Go on.
That's another issue. But the idea is that you have the Telegraph reporting on this. You have G4 Media reporting and quoting the Telegraph. And then you have Agence France Presse. So I don't know if they targeted you too. They're just like Funky Citizen, fact-checker in Romania, just related to one of the biggest news agency, the Agence France Presse, the French Agence France Presse. And they put a fact-check on the G4 Media because it was saying, in a way, it was reporting the risk for the teenagers if we push transitioning on them. And it was saying that the Commission was, in a way, pushing a strategy that will promote that.
Can you imagine? People died on the streets of Bucharest in 1989 so that we have a conversation in 2026 about transgenderism in the high schools of Bucharest. It's just crazy. I cannot accept that we are living in this world. I cannot accept that people are paying taxes in order to fund such activities, which to me sound fascists. And I'm explaining myself. Why? In fascism, the state has to be the ultimate arbiter of truth. So it's not you and me, two individuals discussing, and somewhere in between, you know this beautiful saying in French, la vérité, c'est l'interdit. You have one mondi, ton dit, you have l'interdit, ce qui est entre les deux dits. So what's in between, sometimes, it's the truth. In between your saying and my saying, there is something lingering, there's something which reveals itself as the truth. So we have a conversation, and somewhere in between, truth appears. That's the dynamic, philosophically speaking, that's that dynamic of, truth manifestation, so to speak. That's why we go to school. That's why we go to universities. So we study Plato and Aristotle. And maybe in between, we make up our minds. We study Christianity and Stoicism. Maybe in between, we make our choice. So the idea is that it's not the state who is deciding what's good and bad, what's beautiful and what's not beautiful. It's the individual. And of course, the individual is part of a community, and he will go back to his community and try to perhaps promote that particular vision. And you have a Christian community, then you have a Stoic community, and so on and so forth. Now, all of a sudden, in 2026, we hear, well, we don't have actually the right to make our choices. It's, as you said, the NGO called Funky Citizen, or the NGO called whatever, who will tell us what we are allowed to read, what we are allowed to think, and eventually the European Commission will endorse a particular worldview. Now, is this not fascism?
It smells like it. It's talk, bark like this.
No,
because
like it's someone else, and that's the Leviathan taking a stand against us, the individual. We are small individuals, small creatures, and you have the big Leviathan called the state, the European Commission, or the government.
There are two things I wanted to mention. And I know that you said again about Funky Citizen and Expert Forum. And you mentioned the Romanian government, but there is something especially concerning, and I never stress it enough. This is the rapid response system. I think you heard about that. This is something created by the European Union. Actually, it's the idea is that you say they censor, and they say, oh, we don't do this. These are the platform doing that. And there is a game, a constant game of, being the snitch. So you say you're not the censor. And censorship still hit. Now, the rapid response system is something that is absolutely crazy in my opinion. So you have a code of conduct on this information that exists before the DSA. And you have the platforms, not X, but the other platforms, and you have a lot of NGOs. And they say, we abide by this code of conduct, we will fight disinformation, and we will publish our work. Now, inside this code of conduct, you have a task force, and it is chaired by the European Commission. And you have the European diplomacy inside this, and you have all the players I mentioned. You don't have any local authority. You don't have anybody from the nation, the member state. But they gain power to flag content during elections. So we have a whole mechanism that is triggered during elections to flag content, and it has nothing from the member state. So this is really like the most violent example of superstate and meddling at the EU level from the debates, the national debates, the national elections. And Romania has been, it's been terrible because in Romania you had the whole calendar was 2024. 4 exactly.
November.
No.
December.
June. June you had European elections.
Yes.
And the first activation of the rapid response system. But at the same time, and it's very important, in Romania you had local elections. You had 5 votes actually to cast. You know, parliament, mayor, city council, and the county. All this happened under the first activation of the European Union's rapid response system. 6 more months, you have parliamentary elections and presidential elections. Rapid response system is triggered again. No European election. The first one in June, there was something European. You can say, oh, these are European Parliament elections and we need for some reason to protect Europe, whatever. But it affected the local elections. Then 6 months later, there is nothing European, local elections, it's activated. 6 months later, May 2025, again, it is activated. And the thing is that the guys getting flagging power here are Funky Citizens and Expert Forum. And
what qualifies an NGO to be called by the European Union to flag? content? What makes? Is there a competition? Can I actually subscribe? Can I be part of this? Because I have my own NGO. Can I actually ask my NGO guys to participate in the same exercise? Would they accept me?
You know, it's a big question. Some people say, oh, if you apply there after everything you documented, they will say no. I'm wondering, maybe everybody should enter this at least so we have a kind of check and balance, because the whole problem is that you have all those people who think they have the right to censor, to flag, to snitch, and everything like that. And it seems that you don't have one voice among them to say, hey, who is making sure we have like due process or balance, or we check. An example, I released my last article, the name of the person who gave the EFCSN accreditation, the European Fact-Checking Standard Network accreditation, to Funky Citizen. It's the name of one of the editors of Funky Citizens today. So it's like I assess you and then I am hired by you. Checks and balances are totally missing. Now, I just want to finish one point. Sorry?
It's a conflict of interest, yeah.
It's conflict of interest. At least if we had transparency, because they're doing the flagging, okay, tell us what you've been flagged. I'm asking, tell me if you are the one, who flagged Christoiu? It's a simple question. Who took down the account of Christoiu, Turcescu, Tuca, and all the other ones? Was it a flag? Or is it the government? We know, because there are reports from the Disinfo Code, we know that Meta was in touch with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, with various institutions in Romania, but we should know who did that. And the crazy part is that after 1 year, light is coming from the United States, because GOP...
Jim Jordan, in the House of Representatives, if I'm not mistaken, or in the Congress, however, he published a document showing the internal conversation between members of these platforms, or I would say managers, or like important guys.
TikTok only so far, yeah.
Especially in TikTok, and members of the European Commission, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and things related to the NGOs. And I dug on that. I provided the link. Maybe we'll put a series of links under the podcast. There is a flag from, I wish, sorry, I don't remember the date. It's before the annulment. You have a list of flagging from Funky Citizen under the rapid response system sent to TikTok. And one of them is named Propaganda for Călin Georgescu.
So let's recap for those who are listening. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Stephane Lucon, who is a journalist, independent journalist, who is looking at the way in which censorship is happening, is operating in Europe, especially in Romania, because he lives in Romania. And he's looking at the way in which, before the cancellation of the presidential election, which took place, if I'm not mistaken, on the 6th of December, 2023, when basically 9 million Romanians saw their right to vote, more than 9, maybe 10 million Romanians saw their right to vote cancelled, okay? Stephane Lucon detected an NGO in Romania paid with both Romanian and European money, called Funky Citizens.
And Meta money, and let's not forget it, because if somebody is listening, Meta and Mr. Zuckerberg should answer some stuff about
flagging material and content which was favorable to one candidate. There were two candidates. One was Călin Georgescu, the other one was whoever she was, Lena Lasconi. And so if you would support the voice and the political program of Călin Georgescu, you would be flagged by Funky Citizens only because you sympathize with the candidate.
And we only know that thanks to Jim Jordan, and because America...
To summarize, you're allowed only to have sympathy for one candidate.
And it's not only that. Those days you had Lucian Davidescu, the journalist.
Yes.
He stated something absolutely obvious, but you get fact-checked. I hope you won't have problem with this video, because I'm going to say that.
You will put it on X, yeah, go on.
Proofs of Russian meddling, of Russian support leading to the success of Mr. Georgescu does not exist. We don't have sounding proof, convincing proof, of Russian meddling, backing, and leading to 23% of the Romanian voting for Georgescu. He said that, he got a fact check from Funky Citizens. And you really need to understand, because when they say that, when they do that, they target not only a journalist, then the fact check spreads. It's like algorithmic manipulation. It spreads to everybody sharing the post of Mr. Davidescu.
So you get flagged, yeah.
It affects the whole bubble, but also anybody who is keen on saying the same thing, because, like former President Traian Băsescu, he said it's a local misery, annulment without proof of the elections. That's Traian Băsescu. I mean, it's okay. He's not a pro-Russian guy, as far as I know. You have Elena Lasconi. You mentioned her. I went to interview her, and she said, I haven't seen any proof of Russian meddling. I can imagine, she quotes, I can imagine influences from anywhere else, but not the Russians. So now, you really got to understand that if you are going to say something that is very important to the Romanian, which is to find out who cancelled and why the elections were cancelled, and was it true, this Russian influence thing that is being repeated over and over in the rest of Europe, forgot the beginning of my sentence, but you see the issue, and it's of the utmost importance for the rest of Europe, because so we have a lack of proof, but very soon we have Macron saying there was Russian meddling in Romania. You have Kallas saying there was Russian meddling in Romania. They publish a report, the FIMI, Foreign Influence Meddling, Information Meddling and Interferences. It's a big report. They don't cover Romania. They say we don't have the data yet. But she writes, Ms. Kallas, a forward to the report. She does not mention Romania. Then she goes to present the report, and she says, out of the forward, there was Russian meddling in Romania. And then you have France, who published the Viginum report. The Viginum report says Romanian authorities say that it looks like there was a state actor. The report doesn't say this was Russian influence, and that's why it doesn't say that. Everybody starts spinning the idea that the French report proves Russian influence.
There was a state actor called France.
Exactly.
There was a state actor entering.
But,
meddling with our election.
Let's go into this, because, I was really cautious when Mr. Durov said the head of the French intelligence services, Mr. Lerner, asked him to censor conservative voices in Romania.
He came physically to Bucharest in those days, I'm told.
Yeah, I'm told.
Anyways.
There's no proof about, as far as I know.
Anyways,
no
whether
proof,
he came or not doesn't matter.
What's important is the word of Mr. Durov regarding that versus the word of the French diplomacy, foreign affairs, Macron, the European diplomacy, and what we could observe. And I was cautious. Durov makes that claim. He says Nicolas Lerner has asked him to censor conservative voices. But it's just Durov. It's one man. He looks like a very free-speech guy. He's taking risk. He's getting a lot of heat from everybody, French government, Russian
Durov
government.
is a bit like Musk.
He's like Musk.
Yes.
Absolutely. Except...
he's a libertarian.
Yeah,
he believes in absolute freedom.
Absolute freedom. So Telegram is being used by the Ukrainians, by the Russian opposition. You cannot. It's hard to. It doesn't mean you should believe him like that, but he has kind of consistency on the matter. And now Durov says, they asked me this, and the other guys are the people who've been spinning the Russian influence lie for months. So logically, you have a bunch of liars saying one stuff, and then they say Durov is lying, and you have Durov. And at the moment, I think it's really up to, maybe the French Parliament to to investigate, to have hearing, because we need to sort these things out. And, this is one thing to have politicians saying all kind of things for propaganda purpose, But Lerner is head of intelligence services. So if somehow, and it's just a question, but if somehow there is a use of the means of the French state to meddle with a friendly nation, that's absolutely crazy. I mean, it cannot stand in a way, you know. And but here, and you know what is crazy? Just to finish, because a few months later, you have the French ambassador here going to the RFI, which is an influential kind of French radio.
Oui. Radio France Internationale.
Radio France Internationale, so it's state-owned radio, and it's influential in Romania because they have content in Romanian.
Our podcast is bigger than theirs. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I hope so.
We have more influence than Radio France. Anyway.
And they repeat, the ambassador repeats the Russian influence lie. He even says that the Romanian president has proved it. And it's, the word is, the diplomatic word is attribution. He says that Iohannis has attributed it to Russia. And the words of Iohannis, before he resigned, it was not clear attribution, it was an analogy. It looks like Russian. It looks like something the Russians will do. And 6 months later, you have the Defense Council in June, and you have information leaked, and the people keep saying, oh, we're pretty sure it's the Russian, but we only have analogy. So that's I mean, if you
Stephane,
can point to something clearly, even 6 months, even a year after, we get to understand that the elections were annulled for something that is not the Russian influence. But to be clear, you know.
Fundamentally, the question is, for instance, you have a mic in front of you right now.
Yeah.
If I take you the mic, you will feel offended, because the most important thing in life is dignity. You want to be treated as a self-standing, self-reliant, free human person capable of agency. If I take you the mic, all of a sudden during this conversation, you will feel I'm not treating you as I should. Not to mention that you might be paying for this show, okay, which is what happens right now. The Romanian people...
It's not paying right now.
No. The Romanian people are paying these individuals, including Mr. Predoy, I'll come back to him. They are paying these individuals, the Romanian people, they are paying their salaries, which are quite rich. They are paying their, advantages. In a way, the European citizens are paying the European Commission, and the French citizens are paying for the salary of Mr. Macron, so that at the end, they turn against the people who basically support their wealthy, luxurious lifestyle. So, this is madness. This is crazy. Because if you take freedom of speech, you take human dignity out of the conversation, and you end up with a robot. You end up maybe with a Chinese social model. You end up with someone who is not a citizen, who is not a free individual, but who is just the slave of the state. And this comes back to the story of the Grand Inquisitor. The Grand Inquisitor is part of a very important novel written in the 19th century by Dostoevsky. And you have the Grand Inquisitor, right? Going back to the Inquisition, Torquemada, and so on. Looking at the crowds, looking at the simple individuals. And he says, after all, if we just feed you with entertainment, with miracles, if we just give you a sense of security, why do you need freedom? You don't need freedom. You can be just happy and content with the little we give you every single day. You will own nothing, and you will be happy, as the Davos guy said. So we are going back, in a way, to the totalitarian project of the Inquisition, to the totalitarian project of the Communist Party, and to the totalitarian project of the fascists in interwar Germany and interwar France. There's no difference, to me, between their mindset, those who were able to burn books, and the mindset of someone like Breton. Where am I wrong?
It's especially important to get people to speak to each other. I've been invited to the European Parliament. There was a conference. It was organized by your colleague, Mr. Pipera, with Mr. Bartulica.
Yes, Bartulica, Stephen.
He was inviting Ms. Joron, which is from the group Patriots for Europe. He invited Raresh Bogdan, which is from the
PNL, National Liberal Party.
At European level,
he is with the Volkspartei, with the Popular Party, EPP.
EPP, exactly. Sorry, yeah. And he was even inviting Fidias Panayotou, who is an independent member.
The famous Fidias.
The famous Fidias, exactly. So you had at least
What did they say?
Well, it was about free speech and social network and content producing and how journalists and content producers were like lost. It was interesting because Mr. Pipera had the idea to invite trade unions, and I think it's far more legit civil society to invite a trade union with members rather
Funky
than
Citizen.
an NGO that has absolutely no consistency. Funky Citizens, they don't rely on memberships, they rely on the money floating from, so it's important to mention it, including from Meta. And it's terrible for me. I mean, if there are people in America that can viralize this part, Meta has been paying Funky Citizens a whole year long during elections, and they were censoring critical voices, opposition, non-aligned voices, and they were paid per fact check. And I don't understand. I mean,
Do you know
a
that
year ago, Mr. Zuckerberg said fact checkers have done too much harm. You've seen.
Yes.
And it was very important. He was saying they've targeted conservatives, they've targeted people who suffered vaccine injury. So he said we should replace it with a community note, which is a far smarter system. He says that, and we still have to support a whole year of censorship by proxy with Funky Citizens who lives off European Union money, various government monies, and Mr. Zuckerberg's company, Meta. And I think Meta should explain, I mean, they could help a lot by making it transparent, everything that has happened in Romania. We had the great subpoena of TikTok by Jim Jordan. We need the same thing about Meta. We need full transparency.
I think they will do that.
I hope.
From my knowledge, because I was there, from my intel, because I spoke with the group who produced the document issued by Mr. Jordan. So from my understanding, they are going to reveal also information about Facebook.
Hallelujah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yes.
We really need that. We need to investigate.
And of course, not
that,
just about Facebook, but also about other platforms, maybe even Google. But the funny thing, and you will be surprised, is that people from Google Romania came to me, and I'm the head of the commission in the Romanian parliament looking at CNA, at the Council of Audiovisual, whatever. And they came to me, the Google people, and they said, Mr. Neamțu, they said, in Romania, there's greater censorship than in any other European country. Mm-hmm. And we see a tendency of ANCOM and CNA and other such governmental institutions to implement rapid censorship to a degree that, it's unseen even in backwarded country, if I may say so. So there's a very strange, bizarre tendency among Romanian elites to basically turn a blind eye when it comes to the question of censorship. Though, and I will finish with this, we have 5 more minutes to go, some of my mentors, intellectuals, people who wrote beautiful books about, history of Western civilization, some of them, under Ceausescu, during communism, they were themselves victims of snitches who'd write reports and then would hand in the reports to the Securitate. Of course, we have also intellectuals who were themselves snitches writing reports. So there's nothing new there. But the idea that only 35 years down the road, you would accept a system which is very similar to the system implemented by the KGB or by the Securitate under Ceausescu, that you accept like public money for fact-checking and for reporting and for snitching, the idea is just, to me, ludicrous. And of course, with this I will end. When you kill conversation, because when you kill an account, you kill the conversation between one version, one worldview, and another worldview. When you kill the conversation, you kill the essence of the European spirit. I will end with this. Europe was born in Greece. Europe was born in a country, in a place rather, in a town, in a, shall we say, city called Athens, where people were discussing the essence of Socrates' enterprise, the essence of the Greek democracy was audiatur et altera pars. Let's listen to the other voice. The whole concept, let's listen to the other voice, which is present in Tacitus, in the great historical writings of the past. The idea that when you write the history of any empire, including the Roman Empire, you present both the voice of the emperor and the voice of the Senate, or the voice of the people. The idea that you have to represent all voices, to me, right now, is gone. How do you want to end this conversation about censorship in Europe? Because I think we will have to meet again. Stephane, we are coming to a close.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things that, let's say, goes outside of our own discussion is that you have The Economist a year ago that looked at what happened in Romania and said, we will downgrade Romania to hybrid regime. It was the first time you have a member of the European Union considered not a democracy or a flawed democracy, it was hybrid regime. And they point to the flimsy reasons for the annulment. Now, what I believe is very important is that if we accept their diagnostic, that it was an hybrid regime, it is a hybrid regime, then of course you see judiciarization, you see lawfare, and we won't go this time into lawfare in Romania, but there were a lot of things. But after lawfare, what happens? It's going to be propaganda and censorship. Now, the real question is that, is it going to spread? Because the European Union, instead of saying, hey guys, it's not okay, you need to provide sounding proof, you need to go back to proper standards and everything, they behave like it was perfect for them. Ursula von der Leyen, Mr. Macron, all the, let's say, so-called pro-EU, and I don't understand what kind of EU they're trying to sell there, because that's repulsive what they're doing. It's not going to make people more European. I think the real European is the one who wants debate among them.
Yes.
But when they don't say a thing, they behave like, oh, it's so good, the Romanians have suspended their democracy. They're sending a message that virtually it's not a problem. It can happen anywhere. It
should happen.
It may happen with the same tools, like the rapid response system in any other European country. So we really need to look at Romania and understand at the European level that if we want to save democracy, we need to understand what happened here, and we need to step back and say, okay, censorship, this is not
This is not good, and I hope it's not going to happen in Hungary. We are having elections in Hungary anytime soon.
And Cyprus next?
Cyprus, and then I think they are planning to do similar things in Germany with AfD, and probably in 2027 in France.
Yeah, if we are unlucky to have Macron until 2027, that's how it will happen. Yeah,
Stephane,
it can happen sooner, and I'm sorry, I mean it's like speculation, but Macron has really no support within the French people.
I know.
So, and he lost the parliamentary elections, and he managed to stay in power, but there is a lot of anger among the French. And the idea is that we have this whole system, and we have, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Mr. Predoiu, he was bragging in summer that the other states were monitoring how Romania did this. And if you think, oh, there was a Russian attack and they did what was good, okay, but if there was no Russian attack, what happened is that they pretext there is a Russian influence to silence opposition. And this is a narrative that exists in France. They are accusing the right-wing populism of being pro-Russia. They are accusing the left-wing populism of being pro-Russia. So, they invent stories so they can censor the
and of
opposition.
Course, Donald Trump is pro-Russian.
And, that's...
because Russian oil, I'm told, will be accepted to be exported even by America.
No, that's... It makes... at some point, all this nonsense, you really understand that it's just about having at one specific moment the possibility for power to censor one voice.
Of course.
It's not...
It's never about truth. It's never about finding, the real story. No, it's all about power. On this note, please come back and accept our invitation to maybe reveal more horrible stories of censorship in Eastern Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mihail Neamțu, and we are very grateful for your participation into this conversation. I thank Stephane Lucon for his contribution. He's an independent journalist. Do you have a place where people can visit you? Yeah,
so it's in Romanian, and it's francezulsubstack.com, so France, Zul, Z-U-L. And that's
on Substack, okay.
On Substack, yeah, you will find me on Substack. That's where I publish all my work, especially on the DSA, on Romania.
And you write also in English?
And I make sure everything is written in English. Usually I write in English first because I think this is a European problem and that's a lingua franca if I want to reach.
For sure.
You know, if I want to speak with people in Czech Republic, I've been monitoring what happened in the last election. So that's why I know there is more audience in Europe, let's say, if I would focus on the Romanian or on the French. But so far I'm investigating a huge machinery, a whole architecture, and English is a good language to do this.
Once again, congratulations and thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe, please support us, and goodbye. Bye-bye.